Hi there, this is Brooks Lindsay, the founder and editor of Debatepedia.org. Thanks for tuning in. So today we're going to go over the arguments against official English, which is a proposal to have English as the official language of the United States of America and the sole official language, and make it so that it's not necessary for the government to provide any services or documentation in other languages, so that if somebody doesn't speak English, speaks, let's say, Spanish, that person does not have the right to demand services and documentation be provided in that language, Spanish. So some of the arguments against: American unity never rested on unity of language. So here's a good quote from the Linguistic Society of America in 1987, quote, "American unity has never rested primarily on unity of language, but rather on common political and social ideals." So yeah, why are we putting so much weight on language itself? We've had many different languages for years and years and years. In fact, I think there are 322 different languages spoken in the United States. So why is it so important that we put stock in English? Sure, the Declaration of Independence, Constitution are written in English, but still, that doesn't mean we must make English the national language. Definitely, Theodore Roosevelt and others have said that it's part of the assimilation crucible. So Theodore Roosevelt said, quote, "We have one language here, and that is the English language. We intend to see that the assimilation crucible turns our people out as Americans." You know, typical Theodore Roosevelt, gung-ho American assimilation and nationalism. And, you know, others say that official English is part of this kind of unity, common bond. We're all trying to get along in one environment. Shouldn't speaking one language be part of that process? But if you look at countries abroad, you'll see that ones like Switzerland speak 4 languages. In fact, they have 4 official languages. They have French, German, Italian, and Romansh. And they do just fine. In fact, they have one of the most successful economies in Europe. Very stable banking system. We all talk about the Swiss banking system, you know, reliable place to hide your money. And in general, they have great national unity. So it doesn't get in the way that they have these 4 primary languages. Language, unity of language, has never been and should not be part of national identity. So let's see. Official English discriminates against non-English speakers. Now, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 said, quote, that you cannot discriminate, that the government cannot discriminate, quote, on the ground of race, color, or national origin, and in any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So this has caused many people, including the Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund, to say that official English is a violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, that it is discriminating against people that are non-English speakers based on their national origin, because language is usually attached to national origin, and therefore that it is discrimination. I think there's a very strong argument here. Official English is driven by anti-immigrant and racist sentiment, is another argument on Debatepedia's article on this topic. So if you look back to John Tanton, who was the founder of U.S. English, which is the primary lobbying group in favor of official English, he actually had to quit in 1986 his job in this role because he had made derogatory comments about Mexicans. And in general, he had been writing in kind of a derogatory way about any immigrant, not just Mexicans. So there is definitely an underlying tone of disdain for immigrants and non-English speakers in a lot of the writings in favor of official English. That doesn't mean that there aren't legitimate arguments on the side of official English advocates, because there certainly are. But it does mean that there's something of a connection there, which is problematic. Official English offends the idea of American diversity. Aren't we trying to create a world in which, a country in which diversity is celebrated, that is a good thing? I think that the message sent by creating English as the official language of the United States is more exclusionary. Official English degrades the image of other languages. So yeah, whenever you say to someone, "This is America, we speak English here," you make it sound like speaking another language is somehow a bad thing that degrades those other languages. Now, official English violates the U.S. First Amendment. The First Amendment protects, freedom of expression, and here's a quote from the American Civil Liberties Union. They say, quote, English-only laws which declare English to be the country's official language and bar government employees from providing non-English language assistance and services are inconsistent with both the First Amendment right to communicate with or petition the government and the right to equality. So remember, the right to petition the government, you need to be able to express yourself fully and say, this is what I believe, this is what I want to see changed in government, and etc. If you can't speak English, then an official English policy is making it impossible for you to communicate with your government. Now, others say it also violates equal protection in the courts. So if you go in, let's say you're charged with murder or something, and you don't speak any English, you go in, the government won't provide you with a lawyer that is bilingual, so you can't communicate with your lawyer effectively, and you can't communicate in the courtroom effectively with a judge and others in your testimony. You're put at a huge disadvantage in the law. So that would be a violation of the 14th Amendment, equal protection. Another question is whether English is under threat. The answer is most definitely no in America. So the Linguistic Society of America said in 1987, quote, the English language in America is not threatened. All evidence suggests that recent immigrants are overwhelmingly aware of the social and economic advantages of becoming proficient in English and require no additional compulsion to learn the language. And for sure, 94% of Americans speak English fluently. That leaves 6% that don't, and that would be about 15 million people, so you might argue that that's a good number. But still, relative to other countries where there is a large diversity of languages spoken, 94% of a common language is quite a high number.